Today's show will cover an increase in permanent residence fees, the launch of the Global Task Force on Refugee Labor Mobility, ExpressEntry Draw number 219, Labor Market Impact Assessments or LMIAs, and Studying in Canada, DLIs.
Starting April 30th, 2022, the IRCC is increasing application fees for permanent residency. This includes economic, permit holder, family, and humanitarian classes. Fees were also increased in 2020 to keep up with inflation. However, before that, fees had not increased since 2002. So starting in 2020, fees will increase every 2 years.
On April 6, 2022, leaders from Canada, Australia, the United Nations Refugee Agency, and Refugee launched the Global Task Force on Refugee Labor Mobility, naming Canada as its inaugural chair. This initiative helps build on Canada's Economic Mobility Pathways Pilot, or EMPP. Only 1% of refugees gain access to resettlement each year. One of the goals of this program is to recognize the skills and abilities of refugees by removing barriers and helping them and their families immigrate to Canada through labor complementary pathways. These pathways are alternatives to refugee status, but still also provide immigrants with resettlement and support. The task force will identify opportunities to implement pathways throughout the year. Only 1% of refugees gain access to resettlement each year. One of the goals of this program is to recognize the skills and abilities by refugees and remove barriers and help them and their families immigrate to Canada through labor complementary pathways. These pathways are alternatives to refugee status, but still provide immigrants with resettlement and support. The task force will identify opportunities to implement pathways throughout the year.
I think this is a really great initiative, Adrienne, because there's just been so many refugee crises going on right now.
Yes, specifically looking at the situations in Afghanistan and Ukraine, this is definitely a helpful task force to have now.
Express entry is something that's going to come up quite a bit in this program, so let's talk a little bit about what that is exactly. ExpressEntry is an online immigration application system for skilled workers. Within skilled workers, there are several immigration pathways, which includes provincial nominee programs or PNPs. Applicants are ranked using a points-based system and placed in a pool. Currently, applicants are only being selected from the provincial nominee program, and draws take place every 2 weeks. If your application is drawn, you are invited to apply to a PNP in the Canadian province of your choosing. Immigrants who wish to apply for their permanent resident status, want to live in a specific province, and have desirable skills for the labor market in that province may apply to this program. The latest Express Entry Draw took place on March 30th, 2022. The total number of applicants in the pool was 198,000. The draw selected 919 candidates, with the lowest scoring candidate having a point total of 785. Up next, Adrienne is going to discuss Labor Market Impact Assessments, or LMIAs.
What is an LMIA? A Labor Market Impact Assessment, or an LMIA, is a document that some employers in Canada may need before they hire a foreign worker. It's important to note that not all employers require an LMIA before hiring an employee. Temporary workers in Canada may be required to get an LMIA before applying for a worker's permit. The LMIA document is issued from the Employment and Social Development Canada, which then gives employers information to hire the individual for a temporary position. The application and processing times for LMIAs depend on which hiring program you are a part of. These programs include high-wage workers, low-wage workers, seasonal agricultural worker program workers, and agricultural stream workers. Visit the Government of Canada's page on Labor Market Impact Assessments or speak to a certified immigration consultant to find out which program you qualify for. LMIAs have a positive or a negative test result. A positive LMIA shows that there is a need for a foreign worker to fill a position, and it also shows that no Canadian or permanent resident is able to fill the job. Positive LMIAs are sometimes called confirmation letters. Once an employer receives the LMIA, the worker is able to apply for a work permit. Now on to Sarah.
Canada is among the top countries in the world for international students. Our country is bilingual, diverse, and has thousands of programs and thousands of colleges and universities that accept international students. Today, we're going to be talking about DLIs and why so many international students are picking Canada over the United States. To obtain a study permit, you first need an acceptance letter from a DLI. A DLI is a designated learning institute. It is a post-secondary school in Canada approved by a provincial or territorial government to host international students. There are over 1,500 DLIs in Canada. This includes both colleges and universities. There are 515 in Ontario alone, and Nunavut has none. It is important to remember that the list of DLIs changes frequently, so if you have your heart set on a specific institution, make sure you keep checking that list on the Government of Canada website. The list of DLIs includes top-ranked universities in the world, including the University of Toronto and the University of Waterloo, which is known for its computer science and engineering programs. Canada makes it easier to temporarily work after completing your studies. For example, there's the Post-Graduation Work Permit, or PGWP. If you've graduated from certain DLIs, this can make you more eligible. Programs like these are why international students are choosing to come to Canada instead of the United States to complete their studies. For example, Indian graduate students in science and engineering fields are particularly choosing Canada over the US because temporary work statuses and permanent residence statuses are much more accessible after studying in Canada. Indian graduate students in the fields of computer science and engineering particularly chose Canada over the US because of how much easier it is to get temporary work permits and permanent residency status after completing studies in Canada. In the year 2019 to 2020, U.S. college and university enrollment of international students decreased by 7%, while this number increased in Canada by 52% compared with the year 2016 to 2017. So why is this happening? Well, it comes down to immigration law. In Canada, it is much easier to get a permanent residency status after studying as an international student. Canada also has no limit on immigrants per country. If you want to study abroad, consider Canada, and be sure to look at the long list of DLIs that offer international students a place. Also look at all the work permits available to you as an international student.
I really found it interesting, Sarah, how Canada is attracting more international students than the US now.
Yeah, I found that interesting to learn too. I was a little surprised at first, and then I thought it's not so surprising considering how many programs we have here, our diverse population. There's just a lot of acceptance for international students, and I think that there's a lot more community here.
Right. Yeah, I went to the University of Waterloo, and UW definitely has a lot of international students. A lot of international students come here from Dubai and China and India. And I have a couple of friends who are actually studying here from abroad, and I've learned so much from them. Do you have any experience abroad?
I actually do. I spent 6 weeks in Japan doing an English teaching internship. And even though it was just 6 weeks, I still kind of, for a short period of time, understood what it was like to be a visible minority for the first time, to not know the mainstream language that was spoken. And I did experience a little bit of culture shock, even though it was such a beautiful experience overall. So I really feel for international students, but like we said, the nice thing about Canada is that there are so many other people in the same boat as you, and there's international students and communities for them in all sorts of universities. You go to the University of Waterloo, I went to the University of Toronto, and it's definitely not a rare thing to see. So that's
Definitely
nice.
not. Yeah, it is nice. There's a real community, I would say.
Exactly.
You and I are both domestic students. But I'm sure both of us have had experiences with international students because it's kind of inevitable in both of our schools. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us this week. Be sure to click the bell icon and subscribe to the My Consultant channel. For more information about the topics covered in this show, please visit MyConsultant.ca, where you can contact an authorized immigration consultant and citizenship consultant. I'm Adrienne Quijano.
And I'm Sarah Ostapchuk.
And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.